Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more of the Shell Part 1 Inferno. Last time we left off, we started following a potential lead relating to a piece of writing that we found in the latest victim's mouth. So we've currently gathered a bunch of samples of writing from girls we're suspicious of. I think we chose Nene the nurse. We chose one of the missing girls. I think her name was Yui. And then we also chose Toko because she's just a suspicious little bitch. So that's where we're at right now. It completely left my mind last time we played, but after I collected all the writing, I should have gone to the clinic to deliver the writing to our crazy forensics lady. So I've gone ahead, rewound it a little bit. So last time I think we went to like Ueno Station and talked a little bit with one of our buddies' wives. So it was kind of, it wasn't really relevant either way. So I don't really feel too bad about going back and making sure I do this right. Let me turn down my volume. These games are always loud as fuck. Can't believe I actually came back to this place. I mean, I was just here, wasn't I? And it's not like the autopsy results are ready yet. Wait, what's that? It was then that I noticed a sign hanging off the doorknob. I approached it, figuring it said closed or something, but instead it read, autopsy in progress. Was she trying to make people puke? Okay. Alright, never mind. I guess that was even more meaningless. Huh. Well, thankfully I loaded before I chose the option. Interesting. Okay. So to the commenter that recommended I go back and do that's a little bit surprising. Huh. So I mean, we have all their writing, but maybe, I mean, I would have then said we go to near where our office is, because the police station might be over there, so maybe we can drop it off of them. But apparently either way it didn't really mean anything. Huh. Okay then. Well, so in that case, I think, we know that Ueno Station is non-consequential. There's nothing special that happens there. Takashiro Clinic, again, literally nothing at all happens there. So that leaves us with Moon World and Inokashira Park. I feel like if we go to Inokashira, we might run into Toko, just because her house is by there, supposedly. But I'm tempted to go to Moon World, just because I'm a little bit biased, where should we start our adventure off at? Let's go to Inokashira Park. We don't go there enough. I arrived at Inokashira Park. There were more people out than usual, possibly because it had been getting warmer. Still, it was a tranquil evening all the same. The serene vibe was almost enough to make me forget this park had been the site of a macabre crime scene not too long ago. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar face sitting at the bench overlooking Inokashira Pond.
Yeah, Tsukishima-san.
Oh, Orihime! I did not expect you here. Orihime got up, closing the book she was reading, and curtsied gracefully.
こんなところで読書かい?
少々肌寒い方が身は引き締まり、頭も澄んで晴れやかになりますよ。
確かに明け方の空気などは冷たくても心地いいものだからね。
I glanced at Orihime's book.
川端康成かい?
ええ、乙女の港です。
そういう題名なのかい?
I knew Yasunada Kawabata, but that didn't mean I was familiar with his entire library of work.
ええ、横浜にある女学園での生活を描いた作品ですわ。いわゆる少女小説ですわね。
へえ、そういう作品も書いていたんだ。意外だな。
I mostly knew him for stories like Snow Country, so this was news to me.
意外といえば、月島さんがそういった本を読んでいることも意外だけれどね。
あら、どうしてですか？私とて普通の年頃の娘です。 こういう本に興味を持つことくらい当たり前ではなくて。
Orihime's mouth curled into a deep smile despite the complaints.
私がどういったものを読んでいると思い出したの？
She looked right up at me, wailing an answer out of my lips. Plays, the Bible, or body magazines? I mean, if we're being completely real here, probably like the plays or the Bible, but I'm gonna tease her a little bit.
カストリ雑誌などは読まないか。やっぱ
Had I seriously asked a girl her that?
あら、そう思われますか？
I could have sworn Orihime flashed me a charming smile for a moment there.
そう思うって。いや、さすがにそんなのを読んだりは。
ええ、もちろん。
What would I get out of reading such a vulgar refuse? However, her face grew as stern as ever a moment later.
そろそろおいとまいたしますわ。
ええ、気をつけてお帰りください。
それでは先生、ごきげんよう。
Orihime bowed before leaving. Alright, cute little interaction there. I honestly think that really anywhere we went aside from the school probably wouldn't have yielded any special results there. But yeah, no, definitely the next time we get the chance, I'll try and see if I can run back to the clinic and get anything done. Because at that point, obviously, the autopsy will have been done. All right, we're going to go ahead and skip through a lot of this because we did all of this last episode, as you can see. I may or may not have had to search up I may or may not have had to search up what, like, because they were talking about the different chapters and stuff, or like the different parts of the story, and I'm sitting here like, what the fuck, like, how do you expect me to know this shit, man? Anyways, Yukari rocked me awake.
おはよう、ゆかり。
I opened my eyes, fighting the overwhelming urge to return to the land of slumber.
寝るんでしたらきちんとお布団に入ってくださいね。
寝るつもりはなかったんだがな。
I stretched out. My body was aching all over, courtesy of the chair I'd had the displeasure of sleeping in.
今何時だ？
朝の5時です。まだ今からでしたら眠れるでしょ。
5時って。まだお前だって起きるには早いだろ
う。どうせ兄さんのことだからずっと書庫にこもっているだろうと思って起きたんですよ。
Yukari shook her head, clearly exasperated, before draping a padded kimono over my shoulders. I plodded back to my room.
ああ、ゆかり、起こさなくてもいいからな。
授業があるのではないですか？
Yukari's brow furrowed, leaving deep creases on her forehead. She radiated the aura of a mother scolding her son for playing hooky.
午後からな。昼までは別の仕事だ。
そうですか。気をつけてくださいね。
Yukari left me to my sleep. I caught a glimpse of a small frown on her face. She must have been worried about my health. Well, I don't blame her. We certainly don't lead a very active lifestyle. I slept for another 3 hours or so before taking the train over to Takadano Baba. I figured the autopsy results would have to be in by that point.
Oh yeah.
So we didn't even have to bring them over. Happens automatically. Well, whatever. Natsume was puffing on a cigarette right outside her
おは
clinic.
ようございます、夏目さん。研修は終わりましたか？
終わってへんかったらこないとこでのんびりとしとりません？さっき大住はんも来はって報告書置いてきましたわ。
ということは、被害者の身元が分かったんですか？
そうやろね。今朝の新聞にも載ってましたさかい。
Natsume escorted me into the clinic, cigarette still perched firmly between her lips. A rancid stench overwhelmed my senses the moment I strolled into the autopsy room.
まず何から始めます？
Though it seemed Natsume wasn't bothered by it. Typical.
ほいじゃあ、大住はんにもろった報告書から読みまひょか。
Natsume pulled some documents out of a nearby envelope.
仏さんの名前は滝川由美。
And there it
練
is.
馬区の大泉学園に住んでる学生さんやね。
Yumi Takigawa Oizumi Academy.
8日の夕方から見えなくなったって親御さんが警察に届けたらしいで。
Well, that's not our girl, is it? I thought it was... Ah, okay, I was getting those confused. I thought she was talking about Yui, but no, this is a completely different one.
8日か。
She'd been missing since the 8th.
発見まで随分と時間が空いているな。
そうどすな。死亡推定日時もその頃やし、しばらく隠しとったんかいな。
少なくとも拠点。遺体を隠しておける場所はあるんだろうな。
Cracking this case open would probably be a cinch if we could zero in on the
夏目
location.
さん、遺体の方はどうでしたか？
直接の死因は首やったね。やっこさん、生きたまま首を折ったみたいやで。ただその前に右腕は切られとったみたいよ。
ひどいな。
んでお腹はやっぱ割れた卵の殻が入っとったわ。この辺は前と一緒。成功の跡も残っとったね。ただ警官拡張の跡があったんよ。わかりやすく言えば
Ooh,
堕胎した後よね。
abortion scar. Okay.
ちょいと気になって前の仏さんも調べ直してみたんやけど、そっちもやった。
So that's gotta be another one of our killer's MOs. So I mean, it was pretty obvious at first, right? Like, he targets girls who are quote-unquote impure, aka not virgins. But it might even go beyond that into girls who have had an abortion, right? Who've gotten pregnant, had an abortion. That might be his targeting method.
2人とも堕胎経験者。
That seemed like a vital clue.
堕胎するには医師の処置が必要だ。もしかすると相手の男などもわかるかもしれない。
I'd have to discuss the matter with Uzomi later.
まだあります今回の仏さん、薬を使われとる。モルヒネが左腕部から注射されとります。
医者という可能性もあり。
That would make sense. I mean, you'd have to imagine that maybe the killer is the doctor they went to for the abortion. Or maybe, or it could even just be that it's a doctor aware of the fact that, hey, oh yeah, you hear about these girls that came in and had an abortion. You know, and then he's picking them off like that.
今日モルヒネなんか誰でも手に入れられますやろ。麻薬取締法が施行されたとはいえ、ちょいとそこいら歩けばいくらでも売っとりますしな。
Natsume played with a tiny medicine bottle as she spoke those words. She's not peddling that stuff, is she?
ああ、そうでした。時坂藩、昨日筆跡鑑定の依頼もしとったですやろ。
Natsume showed me the now familiar scrap of notebook paper.
うちもなんぼかわかるさかい。持ってきたので見せておくれやす。
I opened my notebook and handed over everything I'd managed to obtain.
これです。
Real quick, I do want to note it's not uncommon for, well, you know, it kind of reminds me of like Jack the Ripper. You know, for all these years it was, oh, you know, he's so surgical with how he does it, you know, and yada yada yada. And it was supposedly, the case was closed just recently, I think, because they determined that it was actually this specific guy and he was a doctor. So, you know, it's definitely not impossible. Although I would like to point out the way that this killer goes about it is very crude. So I really haven't seen anything that would suggest like medical knowledge now that I think about it. It's all very very like simplistic the way he does stuff.
そういならちょいと見てみまひょか。
Natsume sat down and compared what I'd given her to the scrap of paper.
ほんにまあ時坂藩、えらく適当に集めてきたんどすな。同じ漢字があればまだマシやったのに、これじゃ細かく見なあかんやんか。
だからといって実際に書かれていた内容を伝えるのもいけないでしょう。
かまへんと思うんやけどな。
Natsume whipped out a magnifying glass and scrutinized the samples.
ん？これは近いかもしれまへんや。
Oh, maybe we got it.
どれですか？
I peeked at what Natsume was working on.
この手紙や。 西園ゆい、今行方不明になっとるお嬢さんやね。
Okay.
そうですか。
So Yui Nishizono wrote the message found in the victim's mouth. It seemed pretty big on its own, but there was also the fact she was still missing.
夏目さん、今持ってきた手紙と遺体についていた紙から西園ゆいの指紋は検出できますか？
うん、できると思います。硝酸銀かニンヒドリンを使わなあかんからここじゃ無理をすけど、
それでもお願いできますか？
うちから鑑識に言うときます。急がせますから今日中には結果がわかると思います。
夏目さん、電話をお借りしてもいいですか？
ちゃんと返してくれるんやったらええよ。
持っていくわけないでしょうが。
I shook my head and went to call Uzomi.
おお、レイジか。
魚住、至急頼みたいことがある。都内の産科を渡って被害者が通院していなかったか調べてくれ。
産科？裸体したところを探せばいいのか？
あと一つ、被害者の家族について職業や何か厄介事を抱えていたりしてなかったかを調べてもらえるか？
そっちの方から攻めるのか。わかった、調べておく。
よろしく頼む。
今度はこっちからだ。西園ゆいについてなんだが、どうやら男がいたらしいぞ。
男？
That wasn't what Sato had said.
まだ何者かは分かっちゃいねえんだがな。これからも聞き込みを続けるつもりだ。
ああ、わかっ
I hung up. It finally felt like we were making actual progress.
おいせ時坂はん、貸してたの返してもらいまひょか？
通話代ですか？
もちろんです。こっちで払ってもらいまひょか？
Natsume reached from my crotch.
俺も忙しいんでお金で解決して。
Reggie, please! Don't turn this down, please, Reggie!
飽きまへんえ、時坂はん。
Wow! What the
もう
fuck?
こんなにしてここ来てからずっと興奮してたんとちゃいます？
Lord up above, I thanks you for my servants. I ain't never gonna say your name in vain again. This was out of left field. A very welcome out of left field pitch. Natsume tore off my pants and leaned over.
そんなわけないじゃないですか。
Also, I'd also like to observe the way that this whole interaction happened makes it seem as though this is something she does frequently. Like, he wasn't like, oh, what are you talking about, Natsume? This was just, come on, like, do we have to do this again? Alright, Reiji, I see you, man.
我慢せんでもええんよ。うちが優しくしてあげますさかい。
Natsume kissed my tip as she said that.
ここほじると気持ちいいですやろ。
She drilled into my urethra with a pink serpent that emerged from her mouth.
あら、もう出てきましたえ。
Natsume lapped up my thin juices with her tongue, smearing them across my glands. She stretched out even further and coated my whole manhood in a glossy sheen.
ほんま、たくましいわ。時坂の。
Natsume wrapped her hand around me and started jerking me off.
これで夜な夜な女の子を泣かせとるんちゃいまっか？
会いに行くとそんな暇はありませんよ。
あら、もったいないわ。うちでしたら一日でもほっときまへんのに。
Hey, Natsume, hi, miss. I'm an available man, I tell you that much.
俺を枯れさせる気ですか？
Did she want to milk me dry?
枯れさすももったいないですからな。ほどほどにしときましょうか。
Natsume kept jerking me just as hard in spite of her words, however.
夏目さん、そんなに動かされると。
出してもええよ。
Natsume teased me as she stimulated my rod.
まだ養蚕時間はありますさかいな。
Hour or four.
いや、そんなに暇じゃ。
Natsume touched my asshole.
時坂藩はこっちでも感じるんおすな。
This actually, this is kind of up there with one of the more steamy scenes that we've played through on this channel.
いや、夏目さん、 そこをいじるのは反則だと思うんですよ。
I was less aroused and more ticklish, honestly.
どないしましょうかな。こないカウパー視線液も出とるしな。
Squelching resounded every time Natsume's hands moved.
いっぺん出しときましょうか。
Natsume started roughly jerking my cock without even waiting to see what I wanted.
夏目さん、もう少しゆっくり。
I grunted. I didn't think I could take much more.
大丈夫やって。ほらほら、加藤なってきましたよ。もう出るんちゃいますか。
いや、
I'm gonna come! Long strings of semen splattered on Natsume's face.
もう出すときは出るって言うてくれへんと。
すみません。
ベトベトですやんか。
Yet despite that, Natsume was happily slurping my cum as if it were a fine delicacy.
今日のも恋です。
See, look, another
時
thing
坂
bad
反
today.
応は
This bitch, this is not the first time this has happened.
そろそろ勘弁してもらえませんかね。
何言うてますの。まだまだこれからやありまへんか。シャキッとせえへんと続けられまへん。
Natsume started fooling around with my dick again, fingers clenched tightly like a claw.
はよ立たせへんと。またこっちいじりますえ。
Oh no, please, Natsume, don't do that.
それだけは勘弁してください。
大丈夫やて。うちかて直腸検査は何度もしとりますさかいな。痛くしいひんから。
だから立たせたいのか萎えさせたいのかどっちなんですか。
そんなこと言うてる割に元気になってきたやありまへんか。これなら十分やね。
Natsume tore off her panties and turned her ass toward me.
今日はこっちでな。
She pointed at her own asshole.
Eh?
Whoa.
こっちやったらいくらでも中で出していいさかいな。
All right, Natsume. All right. This girl freaky in the autopsy room as well. I gave in and pushed my glance into her anus.
入ってきました。硬い。
My manhood sunk deeper and deeper into her ass, stretching it out.
ええよ。ドキサク反応がいっぱい。
Her asshole tightened around my dick every time her ass shook.
ドキサク動いておくんなまし。
Even as she made that request, Natsume was already swinging her own hips.
ええよ。これ。
夏目さん、あまり動かれると。
まだ言っちゃあきまへんや。うちのこともっと気持ちをしてもらわんと。
Natsume started playing playing with her own pussy. Natsume tightened around my cock every time she spoke up. Those are some intense sounds. I tried moving a little.
そここすれて。
My bottom half moved like it had a mind of its own. I kept thrusting in and out of her mechanically like a wind-up toy.
気持ちいいですか。
You like fucking me like a monkey, do ya? Natsume shrieked shrilly and arced her back when I thrust in as deep as possible. Wow.
夏目さん、俺もうそろそろ。
中に出して。
The gratifying slap of flesh against flesh echoed through the room. Natsume's anus clenched up, squeezing all the cum out of me.
いっぱい注がれてます。
My cock shrank and slipped out of her after my second orgasm. Her asshole was open wide again.
満足しましたか？
気持ちよかったんやけど、やっぱ前にも欲しいかもしれまへんな。
Natsume shot a lustful glance my way.
勘弁してください。
If there was ever a textbook definition of friends with benefits, this would be it. I mean, like, his dialogue throughout most of that was just like, oh man, catch me a break, I got other stuff to do, come on now. I managed to break free of Natsume and got dressed again. I'm sorry to keep pausing like this, but man, I cannot get over the fact that it felt like out of nowhere, all of a sudden, it's just, yep, anal in the autopsy room. We got female teachers getting freaky with her female students. We got a fucking kinky forensic analyst. I mean, man, we got it all.
それにしても夏目さん、
何ですか？
夏目さんの方言って絶対に京都弁じゃありませんよね。
ああ、それは仕方ありまへんえ。お家は京都ですけど、うちはいろんなとこ行ってますから言葉が混ざっとるんですわ。
は
あ。Was it really that easy to mix up dialects?
まあ、うちの京言葉はアメリカなまりですからな。
Boston, man! I love Boston!
いや、それは絶対に嘘でしょう。
It was well past noon when I arrived at the academy, so naturally there were no students outside. Morning classes should be ending soon if I remember their schedule right. And indeed, the bell rang nearly at the exact moment I stepped onto campus. Students came streaming out of their classrooms, stoic and silent as ever. This place really never changed, did it? Girls their age had been murdered, and even fellow students had gone missing, yet their worlds kept on turning. Suddenly, a loud crack resounded throughout the hallway. What was that? I looked around until I caught sight of a crowd by one of the freshman classrooms, and at their center was...
月島織姫.
She was staring down what appeared to be a freshman. The girl was holding her cheek, eyes welling with tears. It seemed Orihime had slapped her.
いい加減になさい。くだらない噂などに惑わされてはなりません。
She rebuked the girl, her face drawing grimmer than I'd ever seen before. I knew what the rules here were, but I still couldn't let the incident slide.
まあまあ、落ち着きなさい月島さん。何があったんですか?
I parted the crowd and strode over to Orihime.
時坂先生、何でもありませんわ。この子が少々騒いでおりましたので。
Orihime tried acting as collected as ever, but I didn't miss the restless darting of her eyes.
そうは言っても、頬を張るのはやりすぎですよ。
そうですわね。あなたにも失礼なことをしたわね。でもどんなことがあれ、騒いではなりませんよ。
Orihime chided the freshman and swept right past me.
月島さん。
何でしょうか?
She abruptly stopped and turned around upon hearing me call out to her.
噂というのは
何でもありませんわ。
Orihime interrupted me before swiveling back around and resuming her march. A rumor, huh? Whatever it was, it clearly ruffled Orihime's feathers. I entered the staff room to find Saiki reading a newspaper in front of the heater.
おや、時坂先生。
Saiki put his paper down and rose to greet me.
遅くなってしまい申し訳ありません。
構いませんよ。お忙しいのでしょ?
Yeah, we were very busy.
ええ。そのことでお話がありまして。これからは調査に時間を割かれるので、こちらに来られない日が多くなりそうです。
そうですか。何か分かったのですね。
もうすぐ全てが明らかになると思います。ただ、 それが良い結果であるとは思わない方がいいでしょう。
I skimmed Saeki's newspaper. The press seemed to be gossiping about the potential connection between Kei Koizumi and Yumi Takigawa's murders.
他の学園ですが同年代ですね。
え
Saeki inquired no further than that.
え、そうだ。佐伯先生、黒い卵という言葉はご存知ですか？
Saeki cocked his head.
黒い卵ちょっとわかりませんね。
そうですか。
It seemed the teachers didn't know a thing about that rumor. That settled it. I'd have to get the information from a student somehow. A walking headache stormed into the prep room not too long after I'd taken roost in there.
時坂先生があると。
そりゃあいるだろうさ。
遅刻してたでしょ。
俺はいいんだよ。他にもやることがあるから。
Unfortunately, my comment only served to intensify the gleam in Tojiko's eyes.
探偵の仕事？
もしそうだったとしても言うわけないだろ。
ああ、そういうこと言うんだ。せっかく耳寄りな情報を持ってきてあげたのに。
どんな内容だ？
ふーん、そんな態度で聞こ。
Her behavior made me want to tear my hair out. And not that I planned on scolding her for it or anything,
じ
though.
ゃあいいか。
Giving them the cold shoulder was the best way to make these types talk.
ちょっと聞かなくてもいいの？大スクープってやつだよ。
Hook, line, and sinker. The urge to tell me was killing her. I just knew that.
聞くだけ聞いてやる。さあ話せ。
なんか腹立たしい言い方だけど、あのね、井の頭公園でバラバラ事件があったでしょ。まだ身元も犯人も分かってないやつ。
そんなこともあったな。
I hadn't told Tojiko the particulars of my case. Thus, I feigned ignorance.
1年の子がさ、事件があったすぐ後かな、公園で黒い聖母を見たんだって。お、反応したね。まあ、もともと私が教えてあげた話だもんね。
Tojiko pumped her fist victoriously. Damn it, I've lost this round.
まあ、結局のところ、それは黒い聖母なんかじゃなくて、黒い布をかぶって遊んでた子供なんだけどね。
That's still a connection, though.
なあトジコ。
トジコじゃないやい。
それはどうでもいい。その1年生が黒い聖母と見間違えたのか。
そうらしいよ。つまり彼女も例の噂を知っていたということさ。もちろん彼女だけじゃない。
That must have been what the commotion from earlier was about.
多いのか。
人数は少ないよ。ただここだけじゃなく他のとこにも何人か噂を知っている人はいるみたい。
なあ綴り子。
だからトジコってあれ？
行方不明になっている2人はその噂のことを知っていたのか。
あ、うん、多分ね。
そうか。
Which would mean this rumor had been circulating even before you and Nishizona vanished in January. But then, who started it?
少しは役に立った？
そうだな。考える材料にはなったぞトジコ。
だから
I decided to visit Nene in the infirmary once Tojiko left. The hallways were as soulless as ever, even though afternoon classes had yet to begin. I shimmied down to the first floor, only to bump into Orihime on the landing.
時坂先生。
どうしましたか？
Orihime stopped on the stair right in front of me, not moving a muscle.
あの、
Something was definitely off. The composure she always wielded like a master was nowhere to be found.
あの、先生。
何ですか？
I spoke in the most kind and patient tone I could muster. Her face made it clear that whatever she wished to discuss was no laughing matter. But I knew all I could do was wait for her to talk. Trying to force it out of her would have only had the opposite effect.
あの、
She appeared to be terrified of something. Could it have been that rumor?
月島さん。
Orihime jolted in place when I tried calling out to her.
何でもありません。失礼しました。
Okay. She slogged right by me with her head hung as if she couldn't bear to look me in the eye.
月島さん。 話したくなったら俺のところにおいで。できる限り力になるから。
That is kind of an oddly violent reaction from Orihime. But at the same time, just considering how she's like, I don't know. Because I feel like she does kind of try and play the perfect girl at school, even though she kind of feels otherwise. So obviously I feel like something has happened, or whatever rumors floating around is directly attacking that foundation that she's built. I spent some time watching Orihime walk away. In the end, she gave no indication as to whether she'd heard me.
あれ、時坂先生じゃないか。
I was greeted by Toko the moment I entered the infirmary.
また寝ていたのか。
Her eyes were only partway open, as if she'd just been dreaming.
しっかりと夜に眠っているはずなんだけれどね。
She brought her hand to her mouth to stifle a yawn.
まだ眠いや。もう少し寝ようかな。
寝すぎじゃないのか。
そうかもしれないね。
Toko rubbed her temples as if trying to force away any drowsiness.
あ、そうだ。明日美術館に行くだろ。覚えているよね。
Yeah, totally. I totally remember that.
ああ、マミヤなんとかの古典だろ。
覚えていないじゃないか。マミや心臓だよ。
Toko chuckled.
探偵さんは興味のないことに関しては物覚えが。
そういうつもりではないんだがな。
But it was true that I wasn't all that interested in the exhibit. I believe some open space needed to be in one's heart for them to truly appreciate art. And unfortunately, I had neither that nor the necessary sensibilities. I heard the door to the infirmary open just then, revealing Nene.
あら、時坂先生じゃないですか。どうなさったんです？
ちょっと先生にお尋ねしたいことがあって来たんですが。
私にですか？
Nene glanced at Toko out of the corner of her eye.
どうやら私はお邪魔虫のようだね。それじゃ時坂先生、明日よろしく頼むよ。
Toko passed by me and tapped me on the shoulder before leaving the infirmary.
あら、今日は随分と素直だったわね。
いつもここで休んでいるんですか？
最近は多いわね。休み時間などにやってきては軽く仮眠をとっているようよ。
どこか体が悪いんですかね？
さあ、どうなんでしょうね。
養護教諭なのに把握していないんですか？
You know, I will say that we were specifically told that we would be cooperating with Nene because, you know, oh, well, she interacts with a lot of students. She'll know a lot of stuff. She has not really been helpful at all. Like, at all. So, I don't know.
ごめんなさい。あの年頃だといろいろあるのよ。
Nene briefly shot me an apologetic look.
それで聞きたいこととは何かしら？
ええ。あの年頃でいろいろあるということの延長でもあるんですが、西園由衣と今村遥について二人の診療記録を見せてもらいたいんですが。
それはいくら事件を調査しているとはいえ、外部の男性に見せるものではありませんから。
必要な情報なんです。お願いします。確認したいのは一点だけですから。
何ですか？
If they had abortions.
妊娠。そして堕胎したかどうかです。
I was all but certain that was what linked all these cases.
それは一番答えにくい問題ですね。
それでも重要なんです。
こういった件はこの学院では禁忌とされているのよ。わかるでしょ？
Yet despite her protests, Nene pulled some documents out of a drawer with a resigned sigh.
西園さんと今村さんね。確かにあなたの考えている通りよ。
堕胎手術を行った病院は？
中野にある朽木病理学研究所よ。さっきまでここにいた朽木さんのおじい様が所長を務めていらっしゃるわ。
なんだって。
Fumiya had told me that his father ran a large hospital in Nakano. But why was that coming into play now?
産科の山内先生が担当のはずよ。ここへも定期検診などで来てもらっているわ。
赤崎先生、申し訳ありませんが、その山内先生に連絡を取っていただけませんか？
構わないわよ。おそらく病院にいるでしょうから。
よろしくお願いします。
Okay. So, well, at the very least, well, not really. Toko isn't really coming into play with this, but obviously, you know, with her father, or I think it'd be her father technically, or at least grandfather being the head of that hospital, there's obviously some connections to make there. I left the infirmary and headed for the staff room to inform Saiki of my impending departure.
おや、時坂先生。
Kusaka greeted me from beside the heater as I stepped in. My
草
bad.
加先生、佐伯教頭はありますか？
先ほどお手洗いに行ったようですから、すぐ戻ってくる。
Kusaka took a pill out of a white paper bag and popped it in his mouth.
風邪ですか？
最近頭痛がひどくて、体調が優れないんですよ。
He poured hot water from a kettle into a cup.
空いている時間に中野にある病院へ行っているんですが、なかなか良くなりませんよ。
Kusaka smiled feebly.
中野？それは朽木病理学研究所ですか？
ああ、よくご存知で。そうか、朽木さんとよく話されていますからね。
まあ、そんなところです。
I couldn't have him knowing I'd only just learned about it.
時坂先生、気をつけてくださいね。
Kusaka suddenly lowered his voice.
ここしばらくは学年主任の先生が長期出張で留守にしているから大丈夫ですけど、
Oh.
戻ってきたら学生と話なんてとてもできませんから。
That's just great, as if it wasn't already hard enough to fucking wring information out of these students.
そうなんですか？
Well, that wasn't good. I was willing to bet it was precisely because of restrictions like his that the student body was rebelling behind the school's back.
ああ、そうだ。草加先生は黒い卵という噂をご存知ですか？
I figured it's best to cover all my bases by asking whatever staff I could.
黒い卵ですか？内容までは知りませんが、学生がそんな言葉を使っていたのは聞いたことがありますね。
それは1年生ですか？
さあ、そこまでは。廊下でただ聞こえてきただけですから。
そうですか。ありがとうございます。
いえ、お礼をされるようなことは何もしていませんよ。
Kusaka flashed me a faint grin.
おや、時坂先生、どうかしましたか？
Perfect. Saiki was back.
ああ、佐伯教頭。自分はこれから所用がありますので、これにて失礼させていただきます。
ねえ、存じてます。お気をつけて。
それでは、失礼します。
I bowed to Saiki and Kusaka before swiftly striding out of the school. Okay. To the Research Institute we go. After boarding the Chuo line to Nakano and taking a little stroll, I eventually came across a huge hospital. The gatepost read Kuchiki Pathological Research Institute.
ここか。
It was way bigger than I'd imagined. People steadily streamed in and out of the entrance like a colony of ants. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. It was quiet as a tomb inside. That was only natural since it was a hospital and all, but I couldn't help but find it eerily similar to Oba Girls Academy's halls. The passerby's eyes were devoid of all dreams, hope, or ambition. Yet another uncanny parallel.
これ、そちらは関係者以外入ってはならんよ。
A voice from behind made me freeze in place.
見たところ、患者というわけでもなし。何者かね。
I spun around and found an elderly man in a doctor's coat skeptically sizing me up.
すみません。山之内先生に用件がありまして来たのですが。
山之内くん。ああ、君が大場女学院から来た方かね。
ええ、そうです。
It seemed Nene had done as I'd asked and called ahead. The only issue that remained was whether or not he knew I was a detective.
立ち話もなんだ。こちらへ来たまえ。
The man led me further down the hall and through a door. The door plate read Director's Office. Wait, Director? Then he's Kuchiki's grandfather.
朽木さんでよろしいのですよね。
所長の朽木安忠だ。君のことは聞いている。
ええ。
君が何を調べようがこちらの感知するところではない。ただし、患者に迷惑はかけないでくれたまえ。
それはもちろんです。
That was a given.
用事があるのは山之内くんだったね。今案内させるからしばらく待っていたまえ。
After giving me that whole spiel, Director Kuchiki left his office. I took a look around while I waited patiently. I can't speak. A giant painting was mounted on the wall. There was a card printed below explaining it was titled Kakutas by Shinzo Mamiya. Naturally, I recognized the artist's name after Toko had given me hell earlier for not remembering it.
こういう絵を描くのか。
間宮先生の絵に興味があるのですかな。
Director Kuchiki had gotten back faster than I'd expected.
ええ、まあ。
彼は私の古い友人でね。この絵も彼から直接譲ってもらったものだよ。
Want to pat yourself on the back a little more there? The doctor accompanying Dr. Kuchiki awkwardly cleared his throat.
はあ、すまない。麻酔科の医師で私がいない時の所長代理も務める村瀬君だ。
村瀬直樹です。
Okay.
よろしくお願いします。
Alright, guy. Why are these two guys so fucking, like, creepy looking? Jesus.
時坂です。こちらこそよろしく。
産科の山之内先生のところへ案内します。こちらへどうぞ。まったく、どういうつもりなんだ、うちの所長は。
Murase cursed under his breath the moment he was out of Director Kuchiki's earshot.
部外者の、しかも探偵ごときにカルテを見せるなど言語道断だ。
一応警察の委託を受けているんですけれどね。
Not that I expected that to lift his spirits at all.
ほら、ここだ。さっさと終わらせてさっさと帰ってくれ。
Murase turned and lumbered off as soon as he'd finished escorting me to the obstetrics ward. Obstetrics.
やれやれ。随分と嫌われたもんだな。
Not that I was fazed or bothered by it. If I had 10 yen for every person irritated by a detective sticking their nose where it wasn't wanted, I wouldn't need Yukari to clean up the office.
失礼します。こちら山之内先生のお部屋です。
Alright, let's take our bets. Let's take our bets, people. Is Dr. Yamanouchi a big boobed babe who's an absolute hottie that we bang? Or is it just some generic old lady type? Place your bets, place your bets. Got him placed. Alright, here we go.
はい、そうですけど。
Alright, everybody lost. Everybody lost. The woman in the room gave me an inquisitive stare.
大場女学院から参りました時坂と言います。
ああ、学生さんのことでお話があるとおっしゃっていた方ですね。私は山之内小春。ここで参加を担当しております。
Koharu gave me a bow.
早速ですが要件に入りましょう。こちらで西園結衣と今村遥の堕胎手術を行ったのは確かですか？
はい、そうです。お二人ともこちらで処置しました。
Koharu didn't sound particularly pleased about that.
最近多いんです。あの年頃の少女が妊娠してしまうという事態が。先ほども警察から電話がありまして。
警察から？それはもしかして殺された小泉慶と滝川由美の件ではありませんか？
なぜそれを？
Damn, Uzomi works fast. I'd only told him about that lead this morning.
こちらからあちらに頼んでいたんですよ。もしかしたらという感じだったのですが。
そうですか。確かにそのお二方もこちらで処置しています。ですが
大丈夫ですよ。こちらの病院が事件に関与しているとは思っていませんから。
そうですか。
Koharu heaved a sigh of relief.
それほどまでに多いんですか？
ええ。妊娠まではいかなくてもその可能性があるという相談もあります。その大場女学院の学生でも。
そうですか。
Sure was hard picturing the students at that school acting out.
おそらく学院へ幾度か検診に出向いていますから、それで私に相談を持ちかけているのだとは思いますけれど。
他に気になったことなどはありますか？
そうですね。皆さんあまりはっきりということはありませんけれど、どうやら売春 あるいは強姦の末の妊娠である可能性があります。
Prostitution or rape, Jesus. And you gotta keep in mind, this is supposedly like a at least somewhat prestigious girls' school, so for these girls to be, you know, selling themselves, for one, for them to be selling themselves is definitely something to look into. And yeah, I mean, rape, I don't know, I mean, I guess for the rape part, it would kind of bring into question for me where it's coming from, obviously, because it's like, you know, they're supposedly very restricted as to where they're actually allowed to go, which kind of narrows it down to, okay, you know, maybe on their commute, which feels a little unlikely. Maybe they are, you know, outside of school, maybe they're a little bit more rebellious than they appear to be at school, and they're going out and doing stuff, you know, late at night, and that's when it's happening. Maybe it's someone within the school. Maybe it's somebody at home, you know?
売春ですか。
恋人との性交の場合とは明らかに態度が違うんです。初めて生命を宿した不安ではなく、名も知れぬ男の子供をはらんでしまった
Jesus, that's so fucked up, though. Oh, that is a crazy line. They're less worried about being pregnant for the first time and more terrified of carrying some stranger's child. That's just messed up in like 1,000 different ways. Koharu scrunched her eyebrows, seemingly fighting back tears.
そういったものを彼女たちから感じるんです。
わかりました。ありがとうございました。
I departed the office after that. There was an ashtray in the corner of the hallway, so I lit up a cigarette. The victim's genitals had exhibited no signs of sexual assault. Ergo, the killer wasn't a rapist. However, something still bugged me. These girls had been in the same age range from the same schools, so with that in mind, it was less likely they'd been raped, and more that they'd been part of a prostitution ring. In that case, what if someone brought those girls together and forced them to whore themselves out? See? I ruminated over the facts and theories as I made my way outside. See, that's pretty much what I said, right? Like, the prostitution bit is definitely something to look into. Because, again, suppose it is a prostitution ring. Clearly, somebody has to know about, you know, well, clearly the killer has to know that these girls are getting pregnant and getting abortions because, you know, that's his MO, right? He goes after girls, you know, these high school age girls who have gotten pregnant and had abortions. That's what they do. So, I mean, you could come up with a number of theories just based off of that alone. Maybe this guy is the father. Maybe he's in, you know, and I'm assuming it's a man, which, again, I've kind of become skeptical of that theory. But, you know, maybe he is the father. Maybe they're involved in the trafficking ring in some way. Obviously, they must have knowledge of it, considering that, you know, these girls are being consistently targeted. So, kind of giving us a little bit of insight into the killer's lifestyle, I guess. Or maybe, you know, a little bit of insight into, like, the background. Asking Uezomi for more details was a must. So I decided I'd call him up later and have him drop by Moonworld or something. I spotted a man standing in front of the hospital. He had a large bag slung under his arm, eyes restlessly darting about. Who is he? Whatever he was doing, he looked awfully sketchy. By no stretch of the imagination did he appear to work here. The man scanned the area for a little longer before eventually leaving. What the hell was up with that guy? Probably some wannabe detective or something.
京子、ちょっと奥の席使わせてもらうからな。
Though the place didn't get many customers, I didn't want any prying ears eavesdropping on my conversation with Uezomi.
いいわよ。
That said, the table wasn't particularly unique compared to the other parts of the cafe anyway.
いらっしゃいませ、時坂さん。
Hatsune brought me a glass of water.
ありがとう。コーヒーもらえるかな。
かしこまりました。
Hatsune turned around and headed for the counter. It seemed she'd finished learning the ropes. I quenched my thirst with a sip of water. Clearly, I was a bit tired from all the legwork I'd done.
あら、大住くん、いらっしゃい。
おう、
Uezomi shuffled on in.
こっちだ。
わかったら
He sat across from me with a snort.
レイジてめえ。
偶然だ。うちの学院の学生もそこを使っていたようだからな。
あの二人か。
ああ。
The two of us used deliberately vague wording in case anyone was listening in.
そこはどうなんだ。信頼できるところか。
まだわからない。
そうか。
コーヒーお持ちしました。
Hatsune timidly interrupted our conversation.
ああ、ありがとう。
お仕事頑張ってください。
Hatsune gave us a light bow before returning to her duties.
あれは
Uezomi stared quizzically at Hatsune.
高城の仕事ぶりを見たことがあるんだろうさ。
ああ、通りで仕事中だとわかるわけだ。
Uezomi offloaded a small hill of sugar in his coffee before turning back to me.
その仕事の話だ。被害者の親族について当たっていたんだが、いろいろと分かってきたぞ。
どうだった？
まずは小泉慶だ。父親が新興宗教の教祖まがいなことをやっていてな。教団への寄付金を横領したりと、随分悪どい真似をしていたらしい。
Uezomi flipped through his notebook.
そして滝川由美の母親だが、新宿で滝宮とかいう占い師をしていたらしい。こちらも壺を法外な値段で売ったりして被害者から訴えられているな。
Okay. I opened up my notebook and checked the victim's cause of death, along with the corresponding passage from Dante's Divine Comedy.
我より先にシモニアを行い、引き入れられて石の裂け目に隠るる者を応し。
なんだそいつは。
シモニアとは生物売買、お布施の横領なども含まれる。そして妖術を使った牧者は顔は後ろに向かい、涙が背を伝う。
So this is a lot of connections. Well then, I mean, it's like, what are the coincidences of that then, right? It's like, so it's almost as if the children are paying for the crimes of the parents, yet it also just so happens to be that each of the victims thus far has been, impregnated and had an abortion, potentially involved in a prostitution ring. There's a lot of layers to this.
だからなんだってんだ。
ダンテの新曲にある記述だ。犯人はこれを読み、見立て殺人を行ったんだろう。滝川由美の遺体の口の中に入っていた紙片も同じだ。
ってことは、それを知っている奴が犯人なのか。
遺留品の記述は、岩波文庫から昭和27年に出ている山川平三郎役のものだ。
被疑者の中でそれを読んでいる奴が怪しいだろうが。
じゃあ聞くが、被疑者とは一体誰を指して言っているんだ？
Unless I was mistaken, we still didn't have a clear profile of the killer, let alone an outline.
それを今探すんだろうが。
Uezomi, you need to chill, bro. You need to fucking chill out.
怪しい奴がいればだけどな。
いないこともない。西園結衣に男がいると朝言ったよな。そいつのことが分かったぞ。名前は森夜月。
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that the guy we saw outside of the hospital was this Yorutsugi Mori guy.
カメラマンね。そんなのが仕事になるのか。
最近はなるらしいぞ。戦地でだって写真を撮っていたやつはいただろう。いい。
Uezomi lit a cigarette.
で、だ。こいつが西園結衣の写真を撮っているところが何度か目撃されている。
単なる被写体とカメラマンの関係だったんじゃないのか。
どうだかな。雰囲気は淡々としていたらしいが、まだ調べねえとわからん。まだ本人には当たってねえからな。
So you're just calling him her boyfriend and you haven't even fucking talked to the guy. Uezomi paused for a moment and pulled a small photo out of his notebook.
そういや、森は明日、 上野にある美術館で仕事があると取引先の雑誌社が言っていたぞ。
なあ、魚住。
My eyes were glued to Uzomi's photo.
こいつさっき見たばかりだぞ。
Knew it. He was the man who'd been loitering in front of the Kuchiki Pathological Research Institute.
話はしたのか？
いや、遠くから見ただけだが。
What had he been doing out there? What had he been doing out there? Was it merely a coincidence? Or was it more than it met the... or was there more to it than met the eye?
明日捕まえて話を聞き出すべきだな。
そうだな。ちょうど明日は俺も上野に行くからな。
高城のところか？
いや、九段の美術館さ。学生の引率だよ。
よくそんな余裕があるな。
I don't.
この事件だけじゃなく、もう
Well,
一個
actually-
仕事を抱えているからな。
Considering we had the time to, do the dirty with Natsume, maybe we do have that kind of time on our hands. I made that excuse while recalling the raven-haired girl who talked like a guy.
それじゃあ、ごちそうさん。
I closed the door and left the cafe.
おっと、すみません。
I avoided bumping into someone by the skin of my teeth.
あれ、朽木さんではありませんか。
どうもこんにちは。
My would-be hit-and-run victim turned out to be none other than Chizuru Kuchiki.
先日はお宅まで訪問してしまい、どうも失礼いたしました。
いえ、こちらこそ。
Chizuru bowed her head.
すみません。ちょっと急いで中野へ行かなくてはなりませんので。
Not gonna, huh?
ああ、それは申し訳ありませんでした。お父様の病院ですか。
ええ、それでは。
Chizuru bowed over and over as she sauntered toward the station. The sun was rather low in the western skies. I have work to do, but where should I start? And here we go. Okay, let's work through what we got here. So, Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum. I don't think we really have any reason to go over there. As far as I know, it's still closed. That's something that we're going to visit tomorrow. Again, we could run into that, what I think her name was like Sally or something. We could run into her. I'm not really worried about it. Takashito Clinic, I might go over there just because I think Natsume mentioned that she should have that fingerprint analysis done by later today. It's later today, so I think I might go there. Shinjuku, there's nothing that I really need to do with Shinjuku. I don't really have a reason to go out there. Same with Inokashira. Oh, there's something. Oh, no. We were going to meet Uzomi at Moonworld. We already did that. Obergirls Academy. I don't really feel like there's anything to do there. However, actually, the only reason I'd go to Obergirls Academy or Inokashira Park is for the possibility of running into Orihime. But that's not guaranteed, so I think I'm going to take my shot at visiting the Takashito Clinic first. I will save just in case, however. I arrived at Takadano Baba. Sure hope Natsume's in.
おや、時坂はん、朝来たばかりやないですか。
Natsume was eating udon in the autopsy room.
よくこんなところで飯を食う気になりますね。
牛鍋だってここでするんよ。今度いかがです？
いや、遠慮します。それよりも、
枠を取るって指紋ですよ。
Nice. I remembered. Let's go. She placed her chopsticks down and reached for a piece of paper.
まずは時坂はんが持ってきた手紙。これには3人分の指紋がついておりました。
あの手紙を持っていた佐藤歩と、手紙を出した西園由衣のものですね。
指紋からお名前まではわかりまへん。でもまあそうなんやろね。
Okay, nothing surprising
おい
there.
で、仏さんの口から出てきた切れ端からは一人だけ。
それが西園由衣の指紋ですか。
この段階じゃうちにはどっちかわかりまへん。まあ、それが最初のバラバラの指紋と一致しとったから、おのずと明らかなんやろうけど。
Wait, what?
ちょっと待ってください。 じゃあ、
Yep, that's
バラバ
what
ラ
we,
遺体の身元が西園結衣だってことですか？
that's what we hypothesized earlier with our detective buddy.
そうなるかもしれまへんね。
Natsume sighed.
ニコイチっていうのが一番可能性高いやろけどな。
頭部と腕が別人のものという意味ですか？
If that were true, it'd all add up.
うちの見立てやとね。母屋がどう結論付けるかは分からへんや。
警察本部だってバカじゃない。おそらくその線も抑えているとは思いますが。
However, that meant we'd finally located the missing Yui Nishizono. In a sense, anyway. One could say that I'd finally fulfilled my obligation to Mr. Saiki. However,
まだまだかかりそうだな。
I couldn't shake the feeling that my job wouldn't be over until I closed the book on these serial killings. And you're probably right about that. Dang, there's a lot of information that we're getting flooded with right now. Holy shit. So I think it's pretty safe to say Yui is probably fucking dead. That's no real surprise. And I mean, I guess for the time being, Nene and Toko are both in the clear, eh? Okay. Alright, where else are we going? I want to try and meet up with Orihime to see if we can get anything more out of her. I returned to Obagirl's Academy. However, no one was there. The whole place was deserted. Though the school was still unnervingly quiet even when it wasn't, it felt completely different now that it was vacated. It had this silent desolation to it that resembled an abandoned village.
おや、時坂先生、忘れ物ですか？
Kusaka strolled up to me from the main building.
ああ、草加先生。これはどうしたんですか？
あれ、知らないんですか？明日は休校日ですから、今日は早めに閉めているんですよ。
休校日。あ、そういえばそんなことも聞いてました。
そろそろ年度が変わりますから、忙しくなりますよ。
そうですね。
I wanted to solve this case before April if possible. However, there was no point in digging around this place without anyone to question. Thus, I decided to head someplace else. Okay, well, we didn't go someplace else. But we will go back. Alright, Takashita Clinic. My next best guess would probably be Inokashita Park. The place was mostly deserted, save for a few pedestrians here and there. And among them, I found Orihime lingering by the pond. There we go, that's who I was looking for.
やあ、月島さん。
She looked up at me with emotion as unnatural as a marionette's.
どうかしましたか？
いえ、何も。
And yet, she turned away from me and gazed at the pond instead. Not exactly the most convincing of assertions.
そういえば、昼間のことだけど。
I kept talking even though I figured she probably wouldn't respond.
何か話したいことがあるんじゃないかな。俺が相手だと心細いのは重々承知しているけれど、できることなら話してもらえないか。
Orihime didn't react. No, wait. That wasn't true. I caught her shoulders twitching for just a split second. Ooh! Okay. Try asking about the rumor. I knew silence wasn't going to get me anywhere.
最近、学院で奇妙な話が広まっていたね。
Orihime gasped.
黒い卵が割れると殺されるとか。まったく不謹慎な話だ。
そうですね。
All of a sudden, she rose to her feet.
私はこれで失礼します。時坂先生。
Oh?
おい。
I tried to stop her, but she ignored me and hurried away. Shit. I should have known not to rush her. Alright, well, fuck you guys. I'm going back. What the fuck? Yes, load data. I'm sorry about all this reloading, but oh, come on, man. You can't blame me for this. I was certain bringing up the black egg would be the wrong move in this situation. All I could do was play the waiting game. two sparrows perched on the handrail.
先生、
なんだい？
人は何のために生まれてくるのでしょうか。
I sure hadn't expected her to get all philosophical on me. But I knew I had to answer, and fast.
そうだな。当たり前すぎて考えたこともないな。
それが普通なのでしょうね。
Orihime spared me a glance.
私は物心ついた頃からずっとそのことを考えていました。
But she just as quickly started staring off into the distance.
人は生まれながらに罪を背負っていると言います。では生とはただの食材のためにあるものなのでしょうか。だとしたらそんな性虚しすぎます。
そこまで悲観的に考えてはいけないな。思うに生まれた理由なんてものはないんだ。
ですがただ漠然といいダクダクと生きているだけの生活は耐えられなかったんです。
生まれた理由はなくとも生きる目的は自分で見つけられるだろう。それでいいんだと思うよ。
自分で目的を見つける。
Orihime reflected on those words.
まだ私には分かりません。
まだ若いんだ。時間は十分にあるさ。少しくらい間違えた選択をしてもやり直す機会はいくらでもある。
それで許されるものなのでしょうか。
許されないことはないと思うよ。
Orihime rose to her feet.
ありがとうございます、先生。
Well, that's a much better fucking reaction than what we got for the other option. Jeez. She then bowed to me.
相談には乗るからいつでもおいで。
ええ、それでは。
With those parting words, Orihime walked off, leaving me all alone. She just said that she failed to bear living a life at others' beck and call, the key point being that she spoke about it in past tense. Was that just a coincidence? Or had she already sinned? All I could do was wait for her to open up to me. Huh. Well, I mean, for one, I can't really say I'm surprised that the correct way to get a more positive answer from her was by staying quiet. On the other hand, that is a little bit interesting, that the way that they are kind of playing this out, especially with what we are now associating with, sin and this rumor that's going around. It could be like her whole thing could be completely unrelated to our case, but considering the context of the game, I think it's pretty safe to say that, this might, whatever happened to her, whatever she's kind of fretting over, probably has something to do with our investigation here. Mainly in the way that, again, we've been theorizing about prostitution rings, about, families that are, sinning and their daughters are being punished for it, and Dante's Inferno and all this shit that's going on, so. We'll see though, obviously, we'll see. I sat in my room, puffing on a cigarette after a refreshing bath. Dinner had been stew. Yukari had made it like usual, but it seemed like she'd just been going through the motions this time. Maybe she was tired as well. She must have had a ton weighing on her. Maybe I should clean up after dinner every once in a while. I rose to my feet with that thought in mind when suddenly, Yukari opened the door and stepped right in.
ああ、ゆかり、ちょうどよかった。今日は俺が洗い物を。
兄さん。
Yukari didn't even let me finish.
なんだ、もう洗い物は終わっていたのか。
違います、兄さん。
I could tell Yukari wasn't kidding around.
どうした？
お疲れなのではありませんか？
そんなことはないぞ。この程度でへばってちゃ、とても探偵なんてやってられんよ。
And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't all that tired. Physically, anyway. If anything was exhausting, it was my psyche. The failure to identify the culprit had been taking its toll on me. I was on edge, worrying that I'd only wake up to only hear about another dead girl Yukari's age. But I knew I was this close to figuring out the culprit's game. So close I could feel it in the marrow of my bones even.
無茶はしないでくださいね。
I swear to fucking God, if anything happens to Yukari. Oh, it's game over. It's game over, bro. Pulling out the 9, Swiss cheesing these ops on my block. You hear me?
そう心配するなよ。
ですが、兄さんはいつも本心を表に出そうとはしませんから。
俺が？
もちろん、私の勘違いかもしれません。でも、今の兄さんを見ているのは、たまらなく辛いのです。
ゆかり。
私は、兄さんの支えになることができるのなら、それだけでいいのです。
お前には今までも十分に支えられてきたよ。
I gently ruffled Yukari's hair.
仕事柄かもしれないな。本心を外に表さないのは、ずっとそんな生き方をしてきたから、すぐには直せそうにない。
兄さん。
だから、しばらくの間は我慢してくれないか。
ええ、もちろんです。
Yukari backed up.
それでは兄さん、おやすみなさい。
ああ。おや。
兄さんも夜更かしせず、早く眠ってくださいね。
Yukari left my room after murmuring those parting words. Canto 5, Monster Street.
美術館を巡る。初めて見る絵。写真で見たことのある絵。いろいろ。描き上げたばかりのようにみずみずしい絵。色あせ、元の色彩を失ってしまった絵。最初はどんな色だったのだろう。どんな意図を持ってその色をカンバスに乗せたのだろう。ある一枚の絵の前で私は足を止めた。圧巻だった。吸い込まれそうになる存在感。世界が凝縮されていた。作者は間宮心臓と言った。
Well, clearly Toko has some kind of, infatuation with Shinzo Mamiya. I woke up feeling like total crap. Though I could have sworn I'd had an awful nightmare, the details had long since escaped me. Worse, I was drenched in sweat so clammy that one would be forgiven for thinking it was July, not March. Knowing me, it'd probably be another nightmare about people dying. Death was a repulsively common sight for me during my time as a soldier and a police officer, yet I never got used to it. Yukari opened the door and peered in.
兄さん、起きましたか？
ああ、大丈夫だ。
朝ごはんはどうしますか？
先に食べててもいいぞ。どうせ先に学院へ行くんだろう。
あら兄さん、覚えていないんですか？
え？あ、今日だったか。
仕方のない方ですね。準備はしておきますから、早く起きてきてくださいね。
Damn, what a close call. I definitely wouldn't report in for work if Yukari hadn't reminded me. Though honestly, I should have been breaking my back investigating. Fuck, I can't read. I should have been breaking my back investigating instead of chaperoning some students, given the way things had heated up. Then again, there was a suspect who'd be at the very same museum today. Yorutsuki Mori, the man spotted with you in Shizono. I was going to have to stay on my toes around him so Yukari and Toko didn't suffer for it on the chance he was our man. At any rate, it was time to go. Well, hey, I like that we're thinking of those kinds of things, because you never know.
見ればすぐにわかると思います。
Fuck you, Toko, you dumb bitch! Toko wasted no time exhibiting her unvarnished distaste for me.
3人だけですからね。
先生らしさを発揮したいんだろうさ。
Toko smirked teasingly.
いいから行くぞ。
The four of us marched as one into the museum, with me footing the fare. The walls were lined with framed paintings.
どこ？こちら側から見ていくとしようか。ええ。
The pair made a beeline for one of the walls.
ゆかりは
However, by the time I turned around, my sister had already vanished into thin air. She must have gone off to check the exhibits on her own.
なんだか誰も彼も我が道を行くといった感じだな。
Seriously, it was like they hadn't a scrap of unity. Just then, I felt a pair of eyes boring into me. This whole situation reeked of deja vu. I turned to the source of the gaze and found exactly who I'd expected.
いや、確かステラだったね。
誰？
Stella cocked her head. Not that I blamed her, mind you. We were hardly acquainted.
覚えていないかな。以前マミやなんとかの個展について尋ねた。
心臓開催中。
いや、それは知っているから見に来たんだが。
そう。
Stella walked away like she lost interest in me.
なあ、ステラ。マミや心臓について教えてくれないかな。
心臓？
ああ。俺は美術方面に疎くてよく知らないから。
そう。
Stella nodded and approached the painting.
これは間宮心臓が戦前に描いた作品です。繊細な筆使いでありながら大胆な色彩が海外でも高い評価を受けました。
Let's see, brushwork combined with the audacious use of colors earned high praise both domestically and internationally. Stella's broken language suddenly became as fluent as any Japanese natives.
そしてこちらが戦後広島で描いたというものです。彼は原爆の痕跡が残る街を何ヶ月も歩き、この絵を描いたそうです。
ステラ？
はい。
Stella turned to me quizzically, almost like she'd snapped out of whatever trance she'd been under.
いや、詳しいんだな。
お仕事だから。
Stella nodded a bit before resuming her explanation.
今回の間宮心臓展は再生をテーマにした作品を主に展示しています。キリストの復活などの宗教画を中心に、大阪や倉敷の美術館が所蔵しているものをはじめ、間宮氏本人が所蔵していた絵画も特別に展示させていただいています。
When she put it in perspective like that, it finally dawned upon me that most of these paintings depicted either life, death, or both. The reason most of the relatively recent ones had an edge to them was surely because they'd been painted after the war. There was fixation in them that appeared borderline obsessive.
こっち。
Stella suddenly hauled me off. She dragged me to a large piece of artwork at the edge of the exhibit where we found Toko. The black egg. I didn't even know how to begin describing this painting. It appeared to depict a woman who was just to be born from an egg. Toko was absolutely spellbound by it. And before I even knew it, I started unconsciously comparing Toko's face to the woman in the painting. What the hell? They're damn near identical. It's almost like...
これが終戦間際に描かれた間宮心臓の最高傑作とも言われる空の少女。
Stella quietly recited those facts as though she were explaining the details surrounding a solemn rite to me. Huh. Well, actually, now that I think about it, it's very likely that that actually is Toko in the painting, considering that Shinzo Mamiya is close friends with Toko's grandfather. So that probably is Toko in that painting. Although it's a little weird that she would be nude, considering that was probably some years ago that it was painted. And Toko's, what, like Toko at oldest here is probably 16, 17, probably 17 oldest. So we can probably assume that was when she was like, this is in the 50s, I believe. So what, like, war ended in 45, well, technically 44, and then 45, so I mean, yeah, that was a while ago, so oldest probably, if I had to ballpark it, maybe like 14 years old, right? Like 14, 15 if I'm being really fucking generous with how old that painting is. I left the museum with the rest of the art club members after we'd had our fill of the place.
すごく参考になったわよね、トコ。ああ、そうだね。どうしたの？元気がないようだけれど。少し疲れたのかもしれないね。
そろそろ帰りましょうか、兄さん。
そうだな。
I was worried about Toko. Her countenance had been shrouded with a ghastly pallor ever since she saw a girl in shell. Now, why was that? Sure, Stella called it a masterpiece, but it was still just a painting at the end of the day. The woman in it may have been Toko's spitting image, but it wasn't like it was actually her. However, it was also way too much of a stretch to chalk it up as a coincidence. Maybe Toko's mother, one of her relatives, had been the model for it. But Chizuru didn't look all that much like that girl. At least not to my eyes, anyhow. I took stock of someone heading toward the museum out of the corner of my eye. Whoops. Almost forgot the reason I came here in the first place.
ゆかり、すまないが、先に帰っていてくれるか。
それは構いませんけれど、お仕事ですか？
そうだ。
わかりました。お気をつけて。
Yukari left to join Toko and Toko. Meanwhile, I circled back to the museum. By the time I made my way inside, Yorotsuki Mori and Stella were engaged in a heated dispute.
写真ダメ。
いいじゃないですか、減るもんじゃないし。
でもダメ。
俺はちゃんと取材許可受けてきてるんすよ。
でも写真ダメ。
まあまあ、落ち着きたまえ二人とも。
I interceded before it got any uglier. This would make it easier for me to talk to the guy later.
誰？
つい宣告あったばかりでしょうが。
名前。
Oh, yeah. Guess I never did give her my name, did I?
探偵の時坂礼二です。
I made sure to say that loud enough so Yorutsuki Mori could hear me.
レイジ？
ええ、そう呼んでもらっても構いませんよ。
I eyed Yorutsuki like a hawk as I spoke. If he was sharp, he'd be tensing up upon hearing my profession.
へえ、探偵なんすか。
Oh? That was far less of a reaction than I'd expected. Was he truly innocent, or was he just playing dumb?
君は確か森夜月くんだったね。
なんで俺の名前を？
それは君を探していたからだよ。君は西園ゆいという子を知っているかな？
I cut straight to the point as I guarded the exit of the exhibit, ensuring he couldn't take flight.
ええ、知ってますよ。
But much to my surprise, he flat out admitted it without so much as a moment's hesitation.
去年の秋くらいかな。公園にいたところに声をかけて被写体になってもらったんすよ。
ひょっとして知らないのか？
なんすか？
There was no indication he was putting on an act.
彼女は今行方不明になっているんだ。
マジっすか？そういや年明けから見てないっすね。てっきり振られたのかと思ってたっすよ。
It didn't seem like he was lying, not to me anyway.
何か俺にできることはないっすか？
今のところは俺の質問に答えるくらいだな。
俺何でもします。今まで撮った写真だって全部見せますから。
今までの西園ゆいの写真はあるのか？
ええ、もちろんっす。後で持ってきますよ。
そうか。では夜に吉祥寺駅前にある月世界という喫茶店でお茶を。
わかったっす。それじゃあまた後で。
Yorotsuki turned around and shuffled out of the exhibit hall. I still wasn't sure if I could trust him, but he definitely had info, and that was exactly what I needed most. Stella stared at me.
何？
レイジ、探偵？
あ、
そう。
So, Stella nodded to herself and laughed as if she'd unraveled some great mystery of the cosmos.
本当。
I arrived at Inukashita Park. My goal was to discern how much truth there was to the rumor Tojiko had told me about yesterday. Thus, I started looking around. Several kids were playing by the edge of the pond. I walked over, figuring I had nothing to lose by asking.
君たち、ちょっといいかな。
何おじさん。
Ouch, Mister. Now I knew I was getting up in years.
この辺りで黒い布切れが落ちているのを見なかったかな。
おいら知ってるよ。
本当かい？
うん。隣のタカちゃんがかぶって遊んでたよ。
それはどこにあるのかな。
風で飛んでっちゃって木の上に引っかかっちゃったってタカちゃんが言ってたよ。
The boy pointed up to the sky. I looked over and saw that there really was something black snaggled on a tree branch.
高いな。ありがとうな、坊主。
Now came the real question. How was I supposed to get it?
登るしかないんだろうな。
Man, it had been ages since I'd last scaled a tree.
もう少し。
My fingers brushed the cloth. There we go. Just gotta reel it in now. Yukari would never let me hear the end of it if I fell.
先生、何しとうと？
A familiar voice called out to me from below. I grabbed the cloth and looked down, but there were too many branches to get a good view of my surroundings. So I threw the cloth over my shoulder and carefully descended the tree.
やれやれ。
Tojiko was right where I'd landed.
こんなところで何をしてるんだ、トジコ。
いや、それ私のセリフだし。あとトジコ言うな。
まあそんなことはともかく、この布切れか。噂の黒い聖母がまとっていたのは。
私が見たわけじゃないからわからないよ。
She said that, but Tochiko still studied the black cloth with keen interest. Keen interest.
人が着られるようになってるみたいだね。ほら、ここ、穴が開いてる。
There was indeed a gaping hole right where Tojiko indicated. Seemed it was possible to wear it like a rain poncho.
これが黒い聖母だとすると。
And that means the dismembered corpse found in this park lined up with all the other killings, minus the black egg, that is.
これで謎はすべて解けたね。
Tojiko had an odd look on her
いや、
face.
トジコ、お前何も分かっちゃいないだろ。
雰囲気を味わいたかっただけだよ。
I said goodbye to Tojiko and waited at the station to hand the cloth off to Uozomi. He passed through the gate just as I was wondering if Moonworld would have been a better rendezvous point.
おう、見つかったって。
ああ、こいつなんだが。
布切れか。似ているかもしれねえな。
お前もそう思うか。
We were referring to the black cloths that the corpses were shrouded in, of course.
同一のものか調べられるか。
できないことはねえだろうな。だがこれで何がわかる？
何もわからないかもしれないな。
おい！
ああ、待てよ。確実な物証とは言えないが、少なくとも噂とのつながりは証明されると思うぜ。
とっとと星を上げてくれ。そうしねえとまた仏が増えるぞ。
そんなことは百も承知だ。
He was right. We still didn't have any definitive evidence that pointed toward the culprit. But we were close. So close that I could taste it even. The western skies had taken on a vermilion hue. Alright, where to? Moonworld? I arrived at Moonworld. It wasn't usually busy at this hour, meaning I could kick back and relax for a bit. Oddly enough, no one greeted me. For a moment I thought the cafe might actually be busy for a change, but I saw no customers around. Instead, I found Kyoko and Hatsune staring at something at the edge of the counter.
じゃあこういうのはどうですか？
それだと予算がね。
おーい。
Paying customer right here.
ほら、時坂くん。
Kyoko finally noticed me.
コーヒーをって、なんでこの時期にアイスクリームがあるんだ？
Anytime is ice cream time, that's what I say. I saw a pile of ice cream seated on a plate atop the counter.
初音ちゃんがね、 うちにも新しいメニューが必要なんじゃないかっていうのよ。
だって聞けばずーっとビスケットくらいしか置いていないっていうじゃないですか。
日持ちしないものは面倒なのよ。
じゃあ普通の軽食でもいいと思いますよ。
じゃあ初音ちゃんが作ってみる？
私がですか？いいですよ。
Hatsune nodded, body radiating confidence.
なあ、コーヒーくれないか。
Did they forget I was here? There was still some time until I was due to meet Yorotsuki Mori. Thus, I decided I'd bum around town a bit first.
悪い虚構。また後で来る。
I strolled out of the cafe, leaving the two to their own devices. Ah, okay. So it's just gonna be a mandatory thing either way. Okay, interesting. Let's think. We don't really have any business at Tokyo Metropolitan besides if we wanted to talk to Stella more. Takashiro Clinic. We already went there for the fingerprints, so we've kind of got confirmation on that, and then obviously, you know, we banged her. Which, man, Natsume, my love. We don't really have anything to do at Inokashira. We actually pretty much already did what we needed to do there. And Oba Girls, we also really don't have anything that is necessarily needing to be done. I'd honestly be tempted to go to Inokashira Park just because this is usually the time we may find Orihime there. And I think it'd be pretty cool if we could get to talk with her a bit. And also, I don't even think Oba Girls is open right now. I think they're actually closed. So we'll go back to Inokashira. I returned to Inokashira Park. Yorotsuki Mori wouldn't be arriving anytime soon, so I chose to kill time here. I walked around for a bit until I spotted Orihime sitting at a bench. She stared out at the pond with a countenance weighed down by despondency. It was clear she hadn't even noticed me despite how close I'd gotten to her.
Yeah.
Orihime quivered with a start.
先生。
隣、いいかな。
どうぞ。
Orihime scooted over to make room for me.
元気がないようだね。
She had nothing to say to that. Whatever was tormenting her had been doing a much bigger number on her than yesterday.
まだ何も話す気にはなれないかな。
Orihime hung her head. I didn't want to force answers out of her if I could help it, but the clock was really ticking.
もしかしたら、俺が調べている件に関わってくる問題かもしれない。
Orihime gasped. I was right. She knew something about the black egg, didn't she?
先生。
Orihime finally broke her silence, yet still was unwilling to look at me.
先生は地獄や天国。
あいにくと俺は現実主義でね。
Oops. I decided it'd be best to not sugarcoat things around her.
私はどう間違っても天国へ行けるような人間ではありません。地獄の豪華で焼かれる咎人です。煉獄へすらもたどり着けぬ大罪人です。
Orihime's voice was as deadpan as ever.
時坂先生の目には私はどのような人間に見えますか？
She urged me to answer. However, I had no idea what to say to someone who claimed she deserved to burn in hell. It'd be easy enough to tell her that wasn't true, but I didn't know why she believed that, so my words would ring hollow.
答えられるはずはありませんわ。だって先生は私のことを何も存じていないのですから。
俺は君のことを学院での立ち居振る舞いでしか知らない。
それが私の全てだとでも思っているのですか？まさか先生に限ってそんなことはありませんよね。
Orihime was slowly but surely growing more impassioned.
私は皆の規範となるよう偽りの自分を演じ続けてきました。月島織姫とは気高く強い人間でなくてはならない。私は皆を導くべき存在。
Orihime abruptly cut her speech short.
いえ、すみません先生。取り乱してしまいまして。
発散したいことがあるのなら、できる時にしておいた方がいいと思うよ。
いいえ、そういうわけにはいきません。私は月島織姫ですから。
At that, she swiftly rose to her feet.
お引き止めしてしまいまして申し訳ありませんでした、先生。それでは、ごきげんよう。
Orihime raced down the walking trail as if fleeing my presence. It was finally just about time. Yorotsuki Mori would be at Moonworld any minute.
いらっしゃいませ、時坂さん。
初音くん、俺を訪ねてきた人はいないかな。
あ、その方でしたら奥の席にいらっしゃいますよ。
Hatsune pointed to a guy casually sipping away at a glass of iced coffee. The one I'd met at the museum, all right. Wow, this guy never fails to surprise me. I suspected it'd be a no-show since he seemed sketchy and all, but fortunately my fears have been unfounded.
あ、どうもっす。
Oops. Yorotsuki got up and bowed.
まさか本当に来るとは思わなかったよ。
え、どうしてですか？
He sounded genuinely confused.
どうしてって。自分が疑われていると思わなかったのか？
え？疑うって何をっすか？
He really didn't have a clue what was going on, did he?
君が彼女を誘拐した可能性もあると言っているんだ。
なんで俺、
西園由衣の周辺にいた人物の中で君が一番怪しいんだ。
Uzomi was the one who told me about the guy, so it only stood to reason he and his boys were probably keeping a close eye on him.
でも俺、何もしてないっすよ。
そう主張したいのならば、君の知っていることをすべて話してくれるかな。
そりゃもちろんっすよ。
Yorotsuki hastily pulled out some photos of his bag.
これ
From
が
his bag.
去年撮った写真っす。
The photos depicted Yui Nishizono, smiling. It was the first time I'd ever seen emotion on her face. One shot showed her reading a book. I scanned her for any distinguishable birthmarks or something like that, but no such luck, unfortunately. However,
このカバンについているものは何だかわかるかい？
ああ、それは確か飾りですよ。黒い卵の。
oh, it's kind of covered, but it's right there. Black egg.
確か友達にもらったとか言ってたっすよ。仲間内でみんな同じのを身につけていたとか。
Ah, there we go. So the black egg seems to be a connection of people. Her circle, huh? Ayumu Sato didn't know about the black egg, meaning Yui Nishizono must have hung out with a different group of friends as well.
中身を抜いて色を塗った本物の卵らしいっすよ。
Oh. Well, if it was a real egg, then the whole threat of, oh, if it breaks, you die, could have been very legitimately real.
な、彼女の仲間というのはわからないか？
そんな無理っすよ。そこまで親密だったわけじゃないし。
If Keiko Izumi and Yumi Takigawa had happened to be a part of this circle as well, then did that mean the black eggs found in their abdomens had originally belonged to them?
それで彼女は今どこに？
それはまだ教えられない。
I needed to learn whatever I could about the black egg and that rumor, even if it meant getting a little rough. After all, the culprit had to be someone connected to that group. I left Moonworld and was about to head home when I spotted a familiar face. It was Fumiya Kuchiki. He moseyed on over when he noticed me.
こんばんは、時坂先生。
はあ、どうも。どこかで飲まれていたんですか？
いえ、ただの散歩ですよ。
Fumiya smiled feebly.
僕は下戸ですから。
そうなんですか。
I couldn't say I was all that surprised. He didn't seem like the drinking type.
今日もトウコちゃんがお世話になったそうで。
いや、何？ただの引率ですよ。そういえば今日は随分とおとなしかったですね。
Ever since she saw that painting, that is.
そうですか？今朝は随分と嬉しそうに見えたのですが。
ところで朽木さん、誰かご親戚にでも彼女とよく似た方はいらっしゃいますか？
どういう意味ですか？
いや、今日行きました美術館にですね、彼女と瓜二つの人物画がありましてね、描かれたのは終戦間際らしいので、ちょっと気になりまして。
絵は見方によってガラリと雰囲気が変わりますから。おそらくトウコちゃんを見ていたから、その姿が絵にも反映されてしまったのではありませんか？
そういうこともあるんですかね。
Hearing that from a doctor shook my conviction.
もしくは千鶴でしょうか。彼女が絵のモデルをやったという覚えはないのですが。
いえ、いいんですよ。少々気になっただけですから。
そうですか。では僕はこれで。
ええ、それでは。
I left Kichijoji and walked home. I'd have to carefully plan out my next course of action after everything I'd learned today.
あ、おかえり先生。
おう、ただいま。
Wait, we're gonna ignore the fact that fucking Suzuriko's there? Hold up. I went back to my room and took a breather. Next, I pulled out a cigarette, popped it into my mouth, and lit it. Clouds of smoke dispersed through the room as my stomach rumbled. I was curious what we were having for dinner, of course. However, something else needed clarifying first.
晩ご飯は焼き鮭と里芋の煮物だって。
なんでお前がこ
I
こ
was
にいるん
about
だ
to say,
よ。
what the fuck are you doing here?
遅いよ先生。
Tojiko was lounging around the living room like she owned the place.
つづり子もご飯食べていくのでしょ。
Yukari asked as she emerged from the kitchen.
もちろんゆかりの手料理だもんね。
What sort of comedy had I stumbled into? I had dinner, took a bath, and returned to my room. It seemed Tojiko was spending the night here. Even though she and Yukari had class tomorrow, she seemed to have no care in the world. Speaking of which, I'd have to resume my investigation at school as well. The first order of business was figuring out how to ask around about that rumor. There were several avenues I could take here. Shake someone up for answers, ask Saiki to handle it, ask Tojiko to handle it. Saiki? Who the fuck is Saiki? Let me pull out my notes. Real quick. Tokyo Saiki. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Clearly, we're gonna ask Tojiko. She's been very reliable thus far. A lot more reliable than Nene, who was supposed to be our fucking student informant.
仕方ない。トジコに頼むか。
何を？
だからなんでお前たちは寝室鬼没なんだ。
隣の部屋にいましたから。
で、私に何を頼みたいのかな？
I almost didn't feel like asking anymore due to how arrogant she sounded.
まあ、背に腹は変えられないか。なあ、トジコ。明日にでも学院で調べてもらいたいことがあるんだが。
ちゃんとお願いします、つづり子様って言ってくれるんだったらいいよ。
じゃあ、ゆかり、頼めるか。
ええ、私は構いませんよ。
ちょっと、私を無視しないでよ。
どうせお前だって首を突っ込みたいんだよ。
そんなの当たり前じゃない。
Talk about a complete 180.
わかったよ。お前も頼むぞ。
うん、任せて。
それで何をすればいいのですか？
以前トジコが黒い卵の話をしていただろう。
難しいと思うな。私だってほんの触りしか知らないからね。あの集団がなんか良くないことしているのは事実だろうけど。
Tojiko looked awfully humble for once.
私が織姫先輩に近づいたのだってなんか話の種になるものがないかなって考えたからだもん。
やはり月島織姫がその噂に関係しているんだな。
多分ね。でも先輩は何も言わないと思うよ。だから責めるとすれば噂を知ってる下級生だけど。
良くないことをしているのであればその内容がどのようなものであろうとそちらからつくことができそうですね。
あまり無茶はしないでくれよ。お前たちまで危険にさらすわけにはいかないからな。
大丈夫だよ。学内のことでそんな危険はないはずだし
Please
さ。
don't say that, fucking Tojiko. Next thing you know, you're gonna wash up on shore in a, wrapped in black cloth. Tojiko confidently pounded her chest. All right.
ああ、おはよう先生。
I think we're gonna go ahead and leave it off right there. Okay, and we will exit. Okay, so the biggest mystery that we were introduced to in this episode was easily that of Orihime. She was initially introduced to us as this very model student, right? This, face of the school, essentially. All the students love her, look up to her. The girl who can do no wrong. But obviously, you know, she started to confide in us a little bit about how, oh, well, you know, actually, why would they expect us to be so, you know, conformant? And why should we have to, you know, be confined by these overly strict rules? So, you know, she was a lot more rebellious than she would at all initially come off as being. But now it seems that something has happened, seemingly very suddenly, something about this rumor, likely the rumor about the black egg, because, you know, we've seen 2 times now that she has reacted very obviously to that rumor. Actually 3 times if you consider her slapping the girl. So clearly she has a connection to it. Clearly this recurrence of it being mentioned to her has kind of thrown her into a bit of a self-loathing spiral, leading her to talk about how she's you know, burn in hell and she's never going to get into heaven, and, you know, what's the point of living, and yada yada yada. So clearly this is weighing very heavily on her. Now the question would be, what exactly does she know, right? Is this something that, like, oh, this little circle with that, you know, had these black eggs, I'm aware of it and I feel bad I didn't do anything? Maybe I'm a part of it and some horrible things have been done to me that I feel like I can't tell anybody else and that warrant me burning in hell. Maybe I've aided in what has happened to these girls in some way, shape, or form, and I feel responsible and guilty, right? There's a lot of different angles that you could kind of look at this from. But I do think if we keep meeting her at the park and in school, I think eventually she will crack. There's been a little bit of forewarning with this whole thing of, oh, the, you know, head director's currently, you know, out traveling, but once he comes back, you know, it's going to be a lot more difficult because he's a real fucking stickler. So that'll be interesting to see as well. And then there's this whole thing with Toko and this painting of what is objectively her inside that black egg. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that it is her. For one, it looks literally fucking 1-to-1 identical. And for 2, just earlier, we had her grandfather tell us that, oh yeah, the Shinzo Mamiya is a really close friend of mine. He's actually sent me some personal works of his. Right? So, again, maybe it's this whole black egg thing. Does Shinzo Mamiya have a relation to the case? Maybe he has a relation to the rumor. Maybe the black egg carrying circle that was mentioned, maybe they're followers of him. Maybe he's a potential suspect. You know, he has something to do with Toko, potentially why Toko feels so disconnected from her family, right? I mean, hell, I wouldn't blame her. She was probably like, again, like I said, she was probably like 13, 14 years old at that, when that photo was, or when that painting was made, right? And it's a fucking nude. Like, that's a lot a bit weird, right? Like, so there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff, and I definitely feel like the pace is kind of picking up a little bit as well. So I don't necessarily think we're close to a solution to the case, because you have to keep in mind that this is a 3-part series. The question would be, are these 3 parts, I mean, I would assume these are all part of like the same interconnecting storyline, right? It'd be a little strange if it was like that, admittedly, but that's kind of what it feels like. I mean, they're all the shell, you know, this is part 1 of the shell. It would only make sense to assume that maybe we are getting somewhat close to the end of the game, and, you know, but the game's not going to end on this, oh, they're the killer, convict them, and all, you know, the day is saved. It's probably going to be something more along the lines of, oh, we were so close to catching them, now we've like got to start from square one kind of deal. But I mean, yeah, a lot of information. And also we anally banged Natsume, which was absolute peak cinematography, might I add. I think that's actually probably, I don't know. You know what? A good video idea is to rank the sex scenes in the games I've played thus far. That's actually a pretty good video idea. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to see that. Anyways, that's gonna be it from me for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!